Welcome to the App Advisory Show, your fortnightly dose of all things cloud accounting, apps, and app advisory.
Welcome all to the first episode of the App Advisory Show. My name is Matt Flanagan, and delighted to have Jonathan Gaunt on, who we'll talk about a little bit more shortly. I work with a company called Abacus, and we're helping accounting firms get the most out of the cloud accounting scenario and the ecosystem, helping them monetize it, commercialize it, put services, products in place. And essentially the reason we're doing this podcast is I have lots of really good individual conversations with apps and firms, and it's really just to bring some of those conversations to life, and really share a bit of some of those conversations and some of the nuggets of information that we get that are really useful. So today we've got Jonathan Gaunt on from FD Works and Xavier. And the reason I've asked Jonathan to be part of this is he's in a really unique position of being an accountant still in practice, but also being in the ecosystem. So he's almost his own customer, I imagine, sometimes, and can sort of play his own tune. I'm sure he's ahead of the customer requirements pot anyway. But Jonathan, I'd just really be interested just to hear a little bit about yourself, a bit of an intro, and a little bit about FD Works and some more about Xavier, and then we'll get a little bit more into sort of the data quality and data health checking.
Perfect. So if I give you a bit of background about me, so I started life as a chartered management accountant, and I did the best part of 20 years in industry. A lot of that was working in kind of large corporates, and I learned an absolute ton of information, kind of ways of doing things, how to run a business, and was involved in some really kind of interesting projects. Did a bit of time in the Middle East, and that was the first time that I started to be part of a smaller business. So it was up until that point, I'd worked in business units with tens of thousands of people. This was the first time I'd worked in a small business with 350 people.
Right. Okay.
And I got quite excited about the speed of change. So actually, and this was during the kind of the credit crunch of 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
So you sat in a situation, you knew something needed to be done, and you would just decide, and then you could walk out of that room and you could make change happen. And I just got so excited about almost kind of seeing the speed of change. Came back to the UK, and I'd always thought I want to run my own business, but I didn't know what. Turn of events, I got tricked by a friend who said, "Can you look at some of my numbers?" And that was kind of the moment of seeing the power of finance in a ultra small business and the impact you could have. That friend then introduced me to someone who used to be a dragon on Dragon's Den, and he kind of challenged my thought process even further of saying, okay, don't tell me why you can't do something, tell me what you need to change in order to make it a success. So for me, that was kind of the point of being a creative accountant in a positive way.
Yeah.
And so I suddenly then started to look at how can I escape corporate world and how can I be a master of my own destiny. Saw Xero, and I thought this is it. This is the tool that we need to be able to use to work remotely. Started doing a couple of part-time FD, so I had a kind of a small portfolio. But then suddenly I realised very, very quickly that I couldn't do my job as an FD because the data, the information that was being put in there wasn't kind of accurate.
When was this, Jonathan? When did you get sort of involved in sort of the cloud?
2012. So quite early end of 2011, beginning of 2012. So I saw the opportunity, knew this is what I wanted to do, and that was really kind of the start of it. And then slowly we realized that actually what there was a real requirement of being a forward-thinking accountant, thinking about where a business is going, and then having robust systems that enable them to kind of capture data, turn that data into insights, and then use those insights to kind of make a decision and have an impact on the kind of the business. So really since then we've FD Works has grown as a practice. We've got 15 people working in the business now, and we're growing. I'm a bit of a data junkie. I love data, and then one of our customers, Hatch Apps, I finished every single meeting with Rich, and I kept on saying, I wish I could code because I would build something. And Rich kind of called my bluff one day, and he said, well, if you could build something, what would you build? And so I thought that what was missing in the ecosystem was a brilliant forecasting tool. So we started building a forecasting tool, which was going to kind of smash everything else out there.
Was this like a win forecast type of thinking, or was it that sort of
scenario? In when I worked at Lloyd's Banking Group, we did an awful lot of what we called driver-based forecasting.
Okay.
So what you try to do is you try to move away from pure numbers, and you talk about almost kind of the story.
Yeah.
So it would be, I've got this many customers. Well, okay, then what would the support structure be of your operational teams around this number of customers? Okay. Yeah. And you'd start to kind of piece it, but you don't talk to the business in pounds. You talk to the business in kind of their drivers.
Yeah.
So we kind of created this tool. It's called Magic Brian. We were kind of really excited by it. We started to play with it, and then it just didn't work. And so we started to kind of look at why it didn't work. And it was really kind of the start of Xavier, where we pulled all the data out, and it's like, well, why have you called it 0 all lowercase 1 month, and then 0 uppercase?
Yeah.
Or kind of receipt
consistency
bank.
Data. Yeah.
Receipt bank is 1 word 1 month, and then it's 2 words another. So we kind of then looked at it and said, okay, that's a duplicate contact, so we then need to merge that. So we then merged that, and then we started to look at it and say, well, why have you coded it to software 1 month, and then why have you coded it to cost of sales the next month? We need to decide what the treatment is of doing that. And so that was really kind of the start of Xavier. And I think it was Rich who kind of looked at it and said, maybe we're building the wrong thing here.
Yeah.
And then let's kind of play in this kind of messy space between Xero on one side and reporting tools. Let's really look at this kind of data quality piece.
Yeah.
And then that was really the bit where we then started looking at it as accountants and say, oh, we've got this process for spotting these anomalies in this kind of way. And before we knew it, then we kind of created Xavier and it launched a project.
What a shame, though, really, that we didn't get an app called Magic Brian in the ecosystem. Just to have that, maybe it'll come back. I don't know, but that would have been great. Just to have something called Magic Brian.
Yeah, it's so we've got an internal Slack channel, and Magic Brian is a kind of an icon in there. So yeah, maybe watch this space, and then this is where you heard about it first of all.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. Okay, so the Magic Brian concept, which then sort of transformed into Xavier.
Yeah.
When was that sort of a thought process? Because you sort of said Rich sort of kept maybe nudging you and like when how long do you think it took you to go from right, this is an idea, to Rich calling you bluff and going, right, we'll do something?
So it was probably over a period of 6 months, but I would love to code. So if I could turn back time, or maybe in the future, it's one of those things where I would love to learn how to code.
Yeah.
And so I understand kind of data, and I understand how to kind of pull it all together, but I can't use, the only technology that I'm really any good at is Excel, Google Sheets.
Yeah, okay.
So I could build something that I knew how to join it all together. I know how to kind of structure data, but it would just take me a long time.
Yeah.
And that was then almost the kind of the point of Rich and I then had a kind of discussion initially. So Rich and the team, we talked about kind of Magic Brian as to could be something, and it both got excited. So it was almost that bit of, well, let's just explore. Let's just kind of build something. And I think if you've got the right people around you, it's as much having the idea and the meeting of two kind of people. Yeah. So we have built tools in the past, and we've used things like Upworker.
Yeah.
So we've got one client who deals with a lot of schools, and so they still get paid by checks. Mm-hmm. So if you think about Xero, the way of being able to mark a check as being received is really long-winded. So this is probably 3-4 years ago, I was looking at it and I understood the kind of an API, what an API could do. And I kept on looking at it and going, if I could just post data there. So I wrote up a project and I chucked it up on Upwork and got something built for a couple of £100, which has saved us hours and hours and hours. And it doesn't look very pretty in terms of it's gone wrong a few times and people have looked at the code and the code's not pretty, but it just kind of works.
It's functional, right? It's functional more than anything else.
And I think this is the bit that I probably encourage a lot of people is almost just to kind of, if you've got an inkling of an idea, part of it is just kind of explore it and see what kind of happens with it, or find the partner who's kind of quite interested in exploring it with you.
Yeah.
Because as accountants, there's so many things that we know could be done in a better, slicker, smoother way.
Yeah.
And my view is, well, you can't expect the software to kind of listen to little old us.
Yes.
You almost need to come up with your own solutions and solve your own problems. Yeah. So that's kind of within our practice. It's very much a case of we just kind of try and crack on and solve something ourselves, and that was really kind of how it came about.
Okay, so Xavier, so when was it founded? What was the year you're classing it as being? It came to life.
So we really kind of kicked off in 2018. Was kind of the starting point. So we went to XeroCon 2018 with an idea, with kind of something. We didn't exhibit. Yeah. But we kind of rocked up there, and all of the kind of founding team were just kind of like looking at each other, going, "Next year we'll come back here and we'll have a stand." And we had a couple of early adopters who we kind of showed the kind of concept of what we were trying to do, and they just looked at it and said, "That's exactly the kind of missing piece." Yeah. And I think this is because we've looked at it as it's the bit that gets us excited as accountants.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not got all of the pretty graphs and everything, but actually it just solves some real kind of problems.
Yeah.
And as your practice gets bigger, yes, you know what to do for one organization, but then when you start to scale that up, that's the bit where you really struggle to see what's going on.
Yeah. So for those who have maybe not heard of Xavier or maybe saw it but not really looked into it, how would you describe it? How do you guys describe it?
So for me, it's about bringing the data to life, and it's about spotting things which don't look right in the data. So it's that bit of it's a bit like a kind of a spotlight. It's about kind of shining and kind of bringing to the front what some of the issues you've got are with your data.
And essentially by doing that, it's like plugging in the Xero organization and the integration run, getting the data in, and then it's going to come up with basically a health score, right? In terms of how that looks and feels. And what's that based on, sort of that scoring?
So what we've done with the health score is we've tried to kind of weight it based on what we think has the biggest impact on you being able to use the information decision making. And we take into consideration within it things like the number of unreconciled bank transactions, because that's obviously kind of really important. We take into consideration things like the number of duplicate contacts, multi-coded contacts. So we tried to kind of take into consideration what we felt were really important to be able to look at this data and go, yeah, we've got confidence in that number. And again, what we're doing is we're taking into consideration the scale.
Yeah.
So if you're a small business and you had 50 transactions out of 75 which were unreconciled, you'll get a poor score. Whereas if it was 50 out of 2,000, then it's almost kind of saying actually the kind of the weighting, the scale of it is slightly different
based on percentage of that. Okay.
And again, it's the ability to be able to then benchmark all of your various organizations with each other. So if you've got one that's got a 90% health score, one that's got 40, well, it's almost then that bit of which one needs the most attention. It's the one with a 40.
Yeah.
And we've started to use that health score in so many different kind of situations. When we get a prospect, we'll run all of their data through Xavier to give us an idea of what's the health score before they've joined us. We will use it where the client does their own bookkeeping. We will kind of look at it as a health score, and that health score almost then gives us the view as to where do we start or don't we start. So actually, if the health score is really poor, then we won't even kind of touch it. It's that bit of pushing back to their existing bookkeeper and saying, right, okay, this is what needs to be tidied up.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that it's a product because, so you mentioned the phrase data junkie. So I love data. Like anyone who's come to my stuff, it's about quality data and frequency of data. You get that and you can really make a difference to a business. But I think what's really interesting for me is the point that you can educate yourselves as a firm on your own points of strength and weakness. But again, you can also be educating clients on their points of strength and weakness. And I think going into that point where maybe an external party, maybe it's a family member, has set up Xero and it's not very good. You as a practitioner, an advisor, say, hey, you know, your husband set this up and it's rubbish. It's pretty hard to bring up a diagnostic tool to say, look, your percentage is low and the computer almost says this. I think that takes that personal element of, I know your person who's done this isn't much up to scratch, but it's really me against them to be saying that. So I think that's a really good tool. And also you can benchmark them individually, right? You're on 40%. We've got you up to 65%. It's something really tangible that you can work together as in a partnership with to improve something. Yeah. I think the final part I would say is around this whole like COVID-19 element we're in at the moment is that we've got people are going to be looking at streamlining who they use and how they use it. So the elasticity of maybe some outsourcing. So again, you know, it'd be a case of we can start to, the bookkeeping is not great. And, you know, our data prep, our accounts prep is hampered by this. And actually maybe the business doesn't even want to use a bookkeeper anymore. Can we take that off them and do it as the whole package so we get a much better return margin and client satisfaction out of the whole process? So I think that's, you know, going to be really important in terms of that education for all parties.
So for it provides different levels for different people within the organisation as well. So as a kind of the practice owner, the bit that I get quite excited about is being almost that transparency across our entire customer base, so that it's prompting you for a reason to pick up the phone and have a conversation with a client. And it's not about waiting to year end. It could be that actually you can start off by having a conversation 2-3 months out to say, look, it looks like you've had a good year. We want to get your numbers produced as quickly as possible, but you've got some issues with your kind of the state of the health of your Xero. And so that is almost then the kind of bit you can prompt, do you want any help?
Yes. Yeah.
Or actually you can get to the point of, understanding and have knowledge of the client relatively quickly. And so you're saving yourself time, but appearing to know an awful lot of the client at the same time. I think that's really key. How do you get up to speed as quickly as possible? But also then that's the bit of knowing what you are taking on as well, because we've been bitten a number of times whereby the conversation with a new prospect goes, so tell me about, oh, I've got Fred's brilliant at doing all the bookkeeping, never misses a beat, the books are in great shape. And you almost you walk back into the office, great shape, don't need to. We didn't really ever go through that thorough onboarding exercise.
Due diligence on the data.
And so you then get 6 months into the kind of relationship, or you get to the point where you were producing a set of numbers, and then you just look at it and it's like, oh, this isn't right, and you keep on kind of going back, but it's too late to then go back to the client and say, oh, we've taken on a duffer.
Yeah.
And whereas if you know that up front, you can almost now have that kind of conversation of, actually, it's not in the shape that we expected it.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of options here. And you can almost then sound it out to the customer and say, option one, these are things that need to be fixed. Go away and fix them. Option two, we'll fix it for you, but there'll be a charge. And that's kind of new. Or option three is a bit like an MOT. This is an advisory. Do you want to fix it or don't you?
Yeah.
And with that, you can kind of gauge how serious the clients are going to take the finances.
Yeah.
So there's almost options that you could technically start to walk away from things, having not exposed yourself. Whereas what we were finding is that we were taking on it based on goodwill.
Yep.
We were leaving it too long, and then we were having to sort out at our expense, sometimes under a bit of time pressure, and it just was never fun.
Yeah.
So we've been able to flip that now and be in complete control. And then the more we use it, the more it's kind of like, oh, we could use it for this, we could use it for this, we could use it for this. So we feel really in control now of our portfolio.
I did a session down in London. I was talking to a firm, one of the firms in the room there, and they were saying, like, people sometimes won't let me into Xero to have a look. And I always feel it'd be like, almost buying a second-hand car, like never taking it out for a test run, or, can I see your latest MOT? I always feel it's like that. So you're in a real sort of vulnerable situation if you're just picking up based on someone's conversation that I think, Fred's good, or whoever's done it is good at this, based on their level of quality, which you have no idea whether it's good or bad. So it's also that impartial view on this type of stuff. And I think the other thing with the data, having the data, so again, good quality data, a frequency of data, that's what we're also looking for. So I've seen from cloud that we're seeing a lot of cloud frequency being attributed to either annual accounts or quarterly VAT returns. And this is real-time software. So we should be in there at least 12 times a year, if not 52 times a year, if not 365 times a year, whatever you want to do. But obviously the data is also really important as well, because when you're doing like you're scoping a job, or you're pricing up how you're going to work with somebody, you might work with them and they are, at £500,000 turnover and they've got 7,000 transactions a year. And then actually over the next year, they grow 10% in both parties. And it's also something you can attribute your feedback to, right? To say, look, your fee, you've increased the business based on these parameters, and our fee's going to increase because we're actually doing more work. So it's that element as well of opening that conversation up, isn't it?
Yeah, no. So it's kind of really an interesting one, because once you get over the kind of the shock of the kind of current situation, and then it's like the bit of, right, okay, hands up, we're in this now. You start to kind of think about your business on the other side and what's kind of important. And so one of the exercises that we've gone through is almost that kind of clarity of, right, okay, let's get together all of the data. So let's understand what the scope of the work is that we're doing for our clients, but then also then compare that initial view or what we've priced based on reality.
Yeah.
So we can then almost kind of go through it, and we're going through that very kind of regimented view now of we're going to price based on transactions using Go Proposal. We've got a range, but now let's use Xavier to then pull those volumes out and then compare the two.
Yeah.
And I think now is a really good time, because we are going to start to see kind of volumes go down, but now is the time for us to start kind of building in some of that kind of the consistency, starting to kind of build a habit. And if we can then almost get our clients into that habit of, we will revisit the pricing quarterly.
Yeah.
Actually, we are going to come out the other side of this, and transaction volumes are going to increase. So therefore, let's then start to almost kind of get into that habit of great news. You had a great quarter last month, you had a great quarter, Matt. We're going to put you.
Yeah, great news all round.
Yeah,
you've got up.
Your volumes are going up.
Yeah.
And we're kind of, but remember, we'll save you time.
Yeah.
So for me, I kind of think a lot of this is almost where, personally, I'm using the data more and more within Xavier in terms of how can this inform me to, or how can this inform the team to be able to make better decisions.
I think as well on this whole world at the moment as well, like, this goodwill element. So I've seen lots of firms do migrations where they might not know, a bit like going in with that lack of due diligence. And it's like, well, don't worry, if we lose on the migration, we'll make up, over the next 3-4 years what we've lost, because they're going to be a long term. I think we've got to think about that slightly differently going forward, because I think we need to be thinking, actually, we're charging what we should be doing, and we're transparent about that, and it's evidential as to what we're doing. Then I think this whole digital health check pre-onboarding is going to be really important. And we do know there's a lot of clients still using what's classed as real-time software in a quarterly or yearly fashion. So they're not even aware this can be done. So I think it's really important for firms to think about that migration, that, if we lose a little bit or we don't charge, we'll get it back later. I'd be really mindful about getting into that scenario now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's that bit of, we've got a real challenge because we sell a service, and it's time. And it's that bit of, you can't kind of touch the time, and we don't appreciate and value time enough. Yeah. So if it was pens that we were selling, you wouldn't let someone just take an extra 10 pens. It's almost that bit of, well, you've paid for 5, you've taken 10. Yeah. But from a time perspective, we don't kind of get that view on it. Yeah. And I think there's a real challenge there that as accountants, we like perfection as well. So there's that real bit of, no, it's not right. And so you chase it in order to be kind of right. And so I think that there's a whole different way that we perhaps need to look at things of, is directionally correct. Okay. Being able to accept that actually we've done the very best that we can in the time scales that we've got. Yeah. Or else we take an approach of, actually, I can't sort all of that mess out. I know what the number should be today. I'm just going to change the kind of closing balance and get it right moving forward. Yeah. I think there's a bit of we need to let go of kind of perfection. It's
an absolute mentality, isn't it? Right? Because maths and numbers add up. There's an end point. 2 + 2 = 4. No, you can 1 + 3 = 4. It's absolute. And when it's really interesting world with digital, where like you're only ever 80% on anything, because the software is moving so quickly. Society, how clients want to work is all changing. So we can't have that perfection. And like you say, it's as best as we can do with what we know right now. And that's all you can work to. So that's a real mentality shift on that. Yeah.
It's also the bit of, it's better than it was. Yeah. So it's almost that kind of bit of, it's great when when you kind of, you know you're winning when you start working with a customer, and it's almost like you ask that question of what numbers you have. Oh, well, I get my report and accounts 9 months after the year end, and that's kind of how then the kind of the vision of moving into the cloud, and they're a little bit kind of reluctant, and it was quite often it was that bit of with creative businesses that I used to say, what, so we can get rid of Sage and we can get rid of that one PC in our business and see the numbers. Yeah. And so you then, over a period of time, then the next thing you know is you've got the MD who's kind of going in and using Xero on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And is really frustrated that the numbers are 2-3 days old. Yeah. And it's like, yes, we won. We're getting there.
Then you need your expectation setting, don't you? About, well, if you want it daily, that's a different service, and that. Do you know what I mean? So it's all of that as well, isn't it? Right? It's gonna you show people a little bit, and then they want everything, and you've still got to manage the expectations of what everything.
Yeah, but I think a lot of this comes back to kind of the habits, and it's kind of it's possible. But a lot of it comes back to how do you collect the data? Yeah. So that is the bit of data collection is being so vital, and it's starting to kind of educate our customers into how do we form the habits. So when they've gone into that coffee shop and they've bought a coffee, how do we get them to get their mobile phone, open up Receipt Bank, snap it, and then just kind of forget about it? There's still that bit of, and I'm as guilty as the next business owner, that I've got my wallet with a week's worth or 2 weeks worth of receipts. Yeah. And it's only when it's almost like, no, we need it. It's like, oh, okay. And I keep on every time it's that, no, next time I buy a coffee, I will. Next time I buy it, I will. But
I've told this story before, but I used to put all my receipts into a Quality Street tin, and you'd be on top of a radiator in the office. And I lost them every year because all the ink had been burnt away. So I just used to pick up these receipts, and they were just, and that I got burnt 2 years on the balance. I was like, that's it. So that was one of the ways we found the cloud accounting. We started looking for stuff like that. So, and then quickly in sort of a minute or two, what's next on the horizon for Xavier? So people will be using it currently who are watching this or listening to it, and there'll be people who are not yet to use it. What's some of the, without giving you full roadmap away, but
no. So we've got some really kind of exciting things that we're kind of building out. The big one that we released Focus, which is about kind of workflow within Xavier. So we're building out some of the kind of aspects of Focus.
So when you say workflow, is that give an example of that?
So workflow, you're completing a VAT return. The traditional kind of challenge of workflows are that you've got the process and you've got the data, and they sit separately. What we've done within Xavier is we've brought those two together. Okay. So if you're completing a VAT return, you've almost got step one, which is check A. Yeah. But you've got A in front of you, and we've kind of narrowed it down to what you specifically want to check. So it's almost workflow with the data there. So we've got some exciting things that we're kind of bringing around to kind of make that more useful, to be able to kind of repeat it. We've got, we're looking at adding in some functionality from a regional perspective. So Australia and New Zealand, we've got a number of customers in both those territories. So we're looking at actually building out some of the kind of capabilities there. But the big thing for us is to kind of listen to our customers, and almost kind of where you started off is being a customer ourselves and saying, well, what else could you do? Or kind of looking at some of the features and saying that's really close, but if we could just replicate it for another couple of kind of purposes. So we're always open for people.
You'll be at that nice point as well, which I'm sure a few of the listeners and watchers will know, where you get software at nimble points where it's, that's a really good thing, and within a week it's there, and then obviously it just grows, and then that week becomes a month and 2 months as more requests, more users. So I think my advice to anybody out there now is, you want to get something in, this is the time to get involved with some of the software that
yeah, and we've had a couple of those kind of conversations where we've spoken to a customer or a kind of a prospect, and they've said, brilliant, but does it? And we're like, no. And it's then a bit of we kind of picked the phone, had a conversation. I really liked this, and there's been a couple of instances where the development team have then just put an all-nighter to get it done and kind of get it out the next day, and it's like, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So we're still kind of really excited about what we're building, and I think that kind of excitement comes through in the product, and it's about how we keep it constantly evolving.
Excellent. That's good. I think a good time to get involved with software, early days, agile, nimble points, always good. Absolutely. Okay, so a little bit of a general question to you now.
Yeah.
This hasn't got to be a cloud accounting app or anything like that, but what's your favorite app or piece of tech or piece of software that you're utilizing and what you're enjoying?
Okay. So I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm a massive fan of Google Sheets. When I first started using it, it was kind of like, I'll never use this. It's Excel all the way. So I'm a massive fan of Google Sheets, and we're playing around with writing some, or I'm trying to kind of write some basic code in JavaScript on that. So that's me trying to tick a bit of a developer box. Airtable's really.
Yeah, okay.
I'm getting excited by Airtable.
And how are you using that, just for listeners?
So we've built our CRM based on Airtable, and we've then using an add-on on top of that called Stacker App, which enables us to be able to give us a really nice front end to it. But the reason I like Airtable is we can completely customize it.
Yeah.
But then the data is then accessible through products like Zapier.
Yeah, okay.
So you can then start to join lots of things up.
So it's your own customized sort of like customer database, for want of a better phrase. But it's a lot more nimble and agile than that, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's about kind of pulling all the data into one place. So I think that's the bit that we've kind of have struggled with, is we've had data in too many kind of places. An Airtable is almost kind of that flexibility that when you start to play with something, you then start thinking to yourself, wouldn't it be great if?
Yeah.
And then that's the bit where you then get the challenge of, that's great, but how do I fix it? How do I kind of include it in the software?
Okay. So we're talking Google Sheets and Airtable are sort of your two go-tos there for people to have a look at if they've not got involved with those. I'm still a bit Excel-y, to be perfectly honest, so not getting into that.
You need to give it time.
Open myself up to it.
Yeah. So for me, the big thing is just the sharing of Google Sheets. The fact that you can, and this is kind of Google products over Microsoft, and I'll probably get abused by kind of lots of people, but I'll take it.
Microsoft dev team, so we're all right. We'll have a battle off. It's cool.
Yeah. So for me, it's just that bit of everyone being able to work in the same document at the same time. That's the bit that I kind of wins me over every single time.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And anything? Have you seen any sort of change in the sort of the cloud accounting space, or what's your thoughts been over like this weird 5 weeks that we've had? Have you seen anything? Any sort of trends like a panicky start and then seems to have plateaued, and we seem to be adapting? What's your feel on it?
Yeah. So I think it's been a really kind of challenging period, and I think there's been the initial shock of, oh my God, what's happening? I then think there's this whole kind of view of actually the support from the government for a lot of businesses is so good. Why wouldn't you take advantage of it?
Yeah.
What we're starting to see now, though, is almost kind of the excitement of businesses of actually, this is the one opportunity that you've got. Your business is kind of slowing down, so you can make changes that you've never been able to make in the past. And it's that bit of, to a certain extent, being selfish. What's the business that you want, as opposed to what was the business it kind of morphed into? Because I think we've all made kind of decisions as we go along that we'd perhaps not make again.
Yeah.
And so now's an opportunity to kind of reset some
It's
of
that
that.
pause point and a bit more informed decision, isn't it? Like, actually, now I can think about it. I can make a better decision, hopefully. So I think that's good. Okay,
Absolutely.
so just to wrap up, where can people find, like, so if somebody wants to get involved with Xavier or understand more, they can go to the website, I take it, and is there free trials, or how's that working with you guys?
Yeah, so go to the website, xavieranalytics.com, and from there you can get a trial. So you can kind of load in a number of your clients, load some good ones in, load some not so good ones in, and get a feel for it. We're doing kind of webinars, so if you want some kind of help, jump in. We're big fans of kind of intercom. So if you've got any questions, then fire it through intercom, and we're pretty responsive. But no, play,
Get involved, plug it in,
get involved,
see how you get on.
and see how it can work for you, and ask lots of questions.
Perfect. Right. Well, I'll wrap it there because that's nearly bang on 45 minutes with a couple of technical issues at the start. So thanks a lot, Jonathan, for your time.
Pleasure.
And as I say, I'm a big fan of data and good quality and frequency. So I'm a big fan of Xavier and what they've built there. This will be going out onto Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all good social media channels that you can find. They're running every 2 weeks. And episode 2 is going to have Paul Bulpett on from Wow Company and former Xero head of accounting. So we'll wrap it at there. Thanks a lot for your time, Jonathan, and thanks a lot for watching or listening. However you're collaborating with us on this. So cheers all. Cheers, Jonathan.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you.
Cheers.